I hit the button.
Okay,
Hey,
we're live. We're live.
we're live. It's only like a couple seconds. Hey, everybody, it's Mother Love and Mr. Kennedy. We got some things to say, to talk about, to share with you our thoughts about what's going on in the world and what we can all do collectively and even individually. Not collectively is better to make the world a better place. And just learn to talk to people, be able to communicate with one another in a positive manner. We can agree to disagree. It's just so much noise going on. I don't think we're really focusing on what we really need to be focusing on. We need to be focusing on our health. We need to be focusing on our finances, what we're eating, where we're going, and be good examples to not just our children, to all children. But it starts at home, you know?
Your show will go live in 5 seconds.
It starts.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, babies. It's the even more fabulous Mother Love and Mr. Kennedy again. It's always been boding well to reintroduce ourselves. So it's a lot going on, and we were talking about this earlier, because I do research. I don't troll the internet. Some people say, how long you been on there? I've been told before literally would come into my office and say, step away from the keyboard. And I didn't even realize that I was addicted. You know what I call all this electronic stuff? Electronic crap. Because everybody. And it's got good information, bad information, some disinformation, and then we got to sort it out and see what's going on. So today I was reading this article. Well, actually, it was the other day I was reading this article about a young man, 28 years old, married. He and his wife had decided not to have kids. And people they can do that. And when you make that decision, it's fine because you set the groundwork for what you want your relationship to be. Okay, well, he has a younger sister, and they have the same dad, and he was 28, she was like 11, and their father died, and I would think it was either the father's brother or the mother's brother uncle who said they would take the little girl. Well, the 28-year-old guy said, well, I'll take her. We can raise her. I know it's going to be a challenge because, she's 11 years old and I don't know anything about this. And the wife said, this is what I did not sign up for this. We made a pact. We made an agreement. We were going to be a childless couple.
Okay.
In your opinion, how do you feel about that? This is your sister, this is your family, and you made a commitment to your wife and things do change. Sometimes the ground rules have to change and you got to be flexible. You know, do you think she's right to say this isn't she didn't sign up for it, but to say she could do it but don't participate?
Not do it and don't participate. No, that's not right, and that wouldn't be the right thing to do.
Okay.
If you're gonna do it, then you jump in both feet and you do it. If because you and your husband had talked about having kids before,
Mm-hmm.
and y'all decided between the two of you that you didn't want to have kids, and that's the two of y'all decision.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want to have kids. The fact that this unfortunate circumstances came about, which had your husband to rethink. Okay, even though we agreed that we didn't want to have kids and we were happily married together without kids. Okay, when this situation arose where we needed to adopt our niece, but your wife said, well, you remember what we agreed upon was not to do that.
Well, actually, she's his sister.
Okay,
She's the husband's little sister.
Okay, and okay, and their parents passed, and so that was his sister. That and his wife said, well, wait a minute. Yeah, she was a great niece, but did I I never planned on trying to raise kids. I understand her point that was something that she had decided, hey, we're doing fine the way we are. We were looking after your sister when we had time, but she wasn't ours all the time. She was just ours when she came over to visit, and she went back home. But she didn't live with us. The fact that with the unfortunate death, and now they're asking them to step up and say, okay, this is your sister. Would you take your sister in versus letting her go stay with another family member or
go to the system, go into the foster care system.
I mean, me, I mean, personally, I would have not been able to allow my sister to go into the system if I
Mm-hmm.
had the ability to prevent that. I mean, I would have to respect my wife's wishes, because that's something that me and her we decided as a couple
Mm-hmm.
what we wanted to do or not do. And but circumstances do change, and I would think because her being 11, well, in a sense, if you say that a person is when they turn 18, they're an adult and they can start living their own life and doing what they. I said because we say that.
did I give the face?
Yes,
I did the face. I
but
admitted
the
it.
fact that I mean, there if we don't have rules and boundaries, then you okay, you can say, well, even though if you're 30, you still should be living at home and listening to what your parents say. I don't think most people will want to do that. Okay, so we've chosen 18 as being the agreed upon timetable that we want to say you're an adult now. You can start making adult decisions on your own. You can get a job. You can actually join the army if you chose to. That if you chose, you could. That so you're making adult decisions. So if she's 11, there's only 7 more years before she will become a legal adult.
Legal adult. I think
So I mean, is 7 years too much to ask? I mean, and
you're asking for the wife. Can you, be in this with me for 7 years? I don't wouldn't want my sister to. And now his uncle had said he would take her and raise her. And
okay,
then when he
well,
thought about it, to not have so much stress in the family, they asked the little girl, "Well, who do you want to stay with?" And she said she wanted to stay with her brother. Well, she thought he was, he was more like a father to her anyway because of the big age gap. And
well,
so,
I mean, I understand. I'm saying I can see the situation,
mhm,
and I'm saying if it was me, I would not say no to my sister of coming to stay with us. I
mhm.
would try to convince my wife that yes, this was something that we did not plan, but this is in a sense a case of an emergency where you're changing on the fly and saying okay, this situation arose. No, not because we wanted it to arise, but it did arise, and the fact that it did, what will we do to try to make a how can we help my sister in her time of need? I would hope that my wife would say, okay, no, we didn't plan on raising kids, but I'll be willing to help you raise your sister for the next 7 years, so that she will be okay. That
She might be there for 28 like our son was like,
okay, it might be, but that means circumstances change too.
mhm,
When
yes.
you say might be,
Mhm.
okay, but the actuality is that, I mean, when she turned 18, she might go off to college, so she wouldn't be at home anyway.
Or
You know,
like you said, go off to the military.
there's a lot of things that could happen when she turned 18. But until then, would I be able to say no to my sister coming to stay? No, I would hope I would be able to convince my wife that even though she's an older child, and that most people, if they're gonna adopt a child or accept a child into their life, they normally want them really young, so they
They
have.
want newborns and up to maybe
Well,
I think two or
well,
three.
yeah. I mean, I said no,
Yeah.
young, much younger, so you have a chance to they get to know you and your rules, your regulations, how you do things with you and your wife. That's one thing. But being his sister, she had a chance to see a lot of them anyway
Hmm.
while she was growing up. So it wasn't like she would be going to a stranger's house
Right.
or coming into a totally strange situation. Even though the it was the brother or the uncle said he would take her.
And their uncle.
Okay, uncle meaning that is either the uncle on her the uncle would be
Either
then
her mother's brother, his mother's brother, or his father's brother.
okay,
Okay.
that they would said okay, they would not want her to go into the system either. So they're
Hmm.
saying that they would be willing to adopt her because to bring it, whether they adopted her or just let her come stay with them, because you don't have to adopt them. They could just come and live with you until they turned 18. You know, this is not a case that
Can you do that? What's the charge?
yes, and you yes right now, if your sister came and stayed with you, or one of her kids came and stayed with you, you don't have to adopt them for them to come and stay with
Okay,
you
I got you,
at
got you, got
all.
you. Oh,
They can't come.
that was kind of like crazy because we've done that before,
All
you
right. I
know.
mean, Okay, so the situation, but it comes down to the two people and what they're thinking or how they're thinking about. Okay, well, the wife has said, okay, I like our situation the way it is. We see your sister when we see her. When we don't see her, we live in our lives. Do I really want somebody else to come start staying with us on a full-time basis? If the wife, if she was, truly adamant about that, not
Hmm.
wanting to have someone else to come stay with them, I mean, I understand her point, and then maybe I would be willing to consider, okay, her staying with the uncle or an aunt versus staying with us. But what I try to convince my wife first that because this is my sister, is she's a lot closer to me than just saying, oh, she's a cousin,
Hmm.
a nephew,
We're
you
not
know,
related.
not related at all. But this is my sister. I mean, she's in an unfortunate situation. Could I have a could I care enough having you know enough for my sister to say yes, come stay with us?
And enough of the wife, even though that might not have been what our plan was, and plans often change
Well,
because you can't
plans
control
always change.
some circumstances. But her being she would become a mother figure, and for her to step up to be able to stand in that gap. I'm hoping she will be compassionate enough to say this child needs to be nurtured, and I can be there, and I'll stand in the gap, and I will continue to be one of the adults in the room, and not just because
Well, I mean,
some people treat them kids when they're in foster care. They treat them kids like garbage.
okay,
And
but
I
this
couldn't even
okay,
imagine.
but this is not you know an
She
adopted
didn't go
relationship
into the system.
where she was already in the system. You trying to bring her out of the system.
That's hard too.
She was never in the system.
Thank
You know,
goodness.
so I mean, it's hard to say that your wife, if she didn't agree, that
Mhm.
I would just think, okay, you're a horrible, terrible person because you didn't agree. I would have to understand that. Okay, we did make an agreement. Okay, we were happy not having kids.
Mhm.
No, I mean it is a responsibility to take on anyone else and say, okay, they'll come and live with us. We'll be in charge of their well being for until they're of age to move out and do things on their own. I mean, could I honestly say that the wife is wrong? No.
No, I don't think
I
she's
mean,
wrong.
I'm
Disappointed maybe, but how would she would need to work through that with her husband and with herself first, because I would hate to see a child go into that situation, and then there's that built-in animosity. Well, I don't want you to be here in the first place. They might not say it, but kids are very intuitive. Most of them are very
right
intuitive,
there. But the
and they
fact
could
is,
pick up on that animosity,
if
and
there,
that
yes,
wouldn't be a good
if there
environment.
was, but I mean, you think about the shoe being on the other foot. If it happened to have been one of her siblings, and their parents,
That might
her
have been
parents,
why she wanted to have kids. I
well,
don't
I
want
mean,
to
it could
have
have been.
kids. They said,
I mean, she could
my
have
sisters and
had a
brothers is
bad
crazy.
relationship. She could have
Say
had
it
a
again. I'm sorry.
she could have had a bad relationship with her siblings.
That's what I was
Okay,
saying.
so and not wanting to do it because you did have a bad situation. But I mean, everybody is different, and to say that I would have to condemn her because she didn't want to bring in her husband's younger sister to come live with them because of an unfortunate situation that has occurred with the
Mhm.
passing of their parents, and so I mean emergencies and situations change, and I would hope that my wife, even though that wasn't something that we had planned to do,
Right.
would be willing to say, I will adjust because this
Mhm.
is an emergency. This is not something that nobody planned to happen. It's a bad situation that did happen, but can we look out for my sister and not just turn my sister away and say, well, we didn't plan on having kids, so I don't want to start it now.
Yeah, that could be quite a dilemma. An
And
awkward
not quite, it is a
is a
dilemma.
dilemma.
I'm,
It is a dilemma. Oh, we can't even talk about dilemmas. Okay, you just gave me a flashback to who doing the what, and I'm just that's a story for a whole nother chapter.
but I mean, but that's why we all are different human beings. When somebody's willing to do something, and somebody will say, "Oh, I would never do that. I can't even consider that." But then consider reality. What if that had been you when you were growing up, and the circumstances put you in that predicament. Would you want your older sibling to care for you, to have compassion for you, or would you want your older sibling to say, well, that's just
That's your
unfortunate, but
life. You'll figure it out. Only way you can really figure it out if you're learning from someone who's done that, who can be compassionate and understand, what shoes you are standing in. And you talk about, if it was on the other foot, this is the kind of situation where you really need both feet, because you said, you got to jump in wholeheartedly, because even
because
even
it's
when you
worse.
have even when you had your own children, yo, we didn't get a handbook, and then when you
Okay,
do get
but
a handbook,
but
it's like that's not applicable over here.
okay, but that's not every family,
I
and,
know.
and because most families hopefully do care about their brothers and sisters, and
Hmm.
would not just want their brothers and sisters to be just out there and say, well, even though I have the space, I don't choose to give the space. No, I have the time, but I choose not to take the time. Those are all situations because
And
we
that's
think
very
about,
important.
you know, what's best for me may not be best for you.
Right.
But if the shoe was on the other foot, that's why I said on the other foot. Say if she had been the older sibling and he was the
Hmm.
younger and he was 11,
Hmm.
would he would have wanted his older sister to take him in
I would
and
think.
and not say no? I mean, no, he is the reverse because he's the older brother and she's
Hmm.
the younger sister. To say, well, I'm sorry, sister. I know, that you're in a predicament because dad died, mom passed. So, you know, the void you going into the system, I can take you in because I'm your older brother. No, or do we allow an uncle or aunt or a niece, to
To
take
come
you
and
in
take you.
versus me? And when they asked her where she wanted to go, she said she wanted to go with her older brother and
Right.
his wife. But because the older brother and his wife had never thought about, or not never thought about it, and not planned on raising kids.
Right, because they made a collective decision to say they wanted to have a childless relationship, and
And
that's
which was okay though. I
and
mean,
I think about that sometimes. When you hear about women having these oops babies, oops, I didn't mean to get pregnant, oops, I didn't mean to sleep with your husband, oops, now what we gonna do? What we gonna tell the child? Child doesn't have any skin in that game, and to put your children in that position to use them as pawns, is awful. And when you're in a position where you can, have make sure that your brothers and sisters and your nieces and nephews, that they're safe, that they got a good solid place to stay, and then sometimes when they get older, they're like, I don't want to stay with you, I'm going to the military because I'm 18,
but,
I'm a
but okay,
country.
but going to that's making a choice at 18.
Right.
She's not 18 yet. She's only 11. And like Steve Harris said, he commented that this is awesome because this is something that happens
That's our brother Steve.
because
Hey, baby.
this happens to
A lot of
millions of people, that circumstances beyond your control does happen. And I always think, if you believe in God, if you believe in Jesus Christ, how could you turn your back on someone else of your own flesh and blood that needs help? I mean, it's not like
now some people,
I said.
and it would all depend on the circumstances. It really would, because what if the person, what if it's a drug addicted baby and you don't know how to deal with that?
Okay, but
What if it's a child that has special needs?
okay,
People can find all kinds. Do you know it's over 1 million children in the foster care system in
okay.
America?
Well, then you think about this though. I mean,
They didn't just fall
no.
out the sky.
Okay,
Where are
but
they?
think of.
Where are the
Um,
people?
okay, that's a lot. That's too many people.
Who?
But the fact that I'm saying, what we don't know is what kind of relationship the wife had with the sister,
Hmm.
with her husband's sister before
Hmm.
that, because maybe they didn't get along. See, not always knowing all of the circumstances, it's easy to make a quick decision and say, well, this is what I think should have happened, or this is what I automatically think that somebody should have took care of them. Well, wait a minute, is it always that easy? Because no, it's not, because you don't know if you get along with them or not.
Right.
I
And you
mean,
don't know
so
what their temperament is when they're
that's
coming
what I'm
to you. If you
saying.
haven't spent a lot of time with them and learning to adjust to them, and adoption is hard enough as it is. you
Yeah.
know, and trying to working to get, children that are in the system out of the system. I mean, when we went down that path, and we're thinking everything is going to be hunky dory, and they were like, "No, you can't do this, you can't do
Okay.
that, you can't have this," and they put. It seems like they put roadblocks. The system puts
Well,
roadblocks
they have to
in the
though.
way of people who want to adopt older
But
children.
they do, and they should, because once again, you have to know the reason why someone wants to adopt a child, and they simply just say, "Oh yeah, I'll take somebody in," because everybody does not always treat these people good just because they take them in.
Right.
So that's why they send you through the training, they have you to do different things, so that you can be better prepared to take on this responsibility. I mean, when we were growing up, that was something that people just did and didn't think about it.
Wait, when did I grow up? I didn't grow up. I'm not an adult. I'm a adult. I don't
Okay,
do
for being
grown
a
up.
adult. I mean, the fact that when circumstances come out of the blue that you're not prepared for, more goes into it, and a lot of times we only hear just the headlines. The
Yeah,
headline
and the
says,
bits and pieces or
okay,
yeah.
the headline said, okay, a brother and his wife had a chance to take his younger sister in to their home because the parents passed. Okay, but did they get along? Did the wife get along with the sister before that? I mean, how long was them two together as a couple?
Mm-hmm.
And they decided they didn't want. I mean, at this some they've been together for say 5 years, and this
Mm-hmm.
was something that they was saying, "Oh, it's cool. Look how we're grooving together for the
Mm-hmm.
past 5 years." Because this was what we decided we weren't gonna have bring kids into the mix. We were just gonna be the two of us, which is fine for them. This is an emergency situation that came about. No, but then you have to look at more than just the headlines. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just simply that this is a young lady who needs, someplace to go, but did she get along with the brother, and his wife
See,
before this happened?
that would mean I would make every effort
Well, that's
to
what
make sure that
that's the
she was
point.
in a safe place, in a good place. And you just never know. She could like really, get on her, and they'll become, have that mother-daughter kind of relationship,
They could, but I mean,
because
but just
she's still young, because he's what the brother's 28, and
okay,
and
and she's 11.
and she's
Okay,
11.
but all I'm saying is that because we do not know,
Right.
we do not know
And
what
you
kind of
don't know what
relation
kind of history
what
they
kind of
have.
relationship at all. That's see, and not to know that, and then to pass judgment and say, well, oh, the wife should have done this, or if the wife, if we're considering the wife, horrible, terrible because she's not wanting to do this, when we don't know all the circumstances. You're passing judgment on somebody because what you assume that
Right.
they should be doing. Just, I mean, yes, I could do that without blinking an eye. I believe you could do that without blinking an eye. But that does not mean that everybody else should be able to do that
Right.
without blinking an eye simply because the circumstances arose. I mean, maybe even though she might want to stay with her older brother, maybe it might be better if she stayed with the uncle, because maybe the uncle would wants because the uncle
See,
will want her.
we didn't get all that detail in
Okay,
the,
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying maybe the uncle really wants her, and she
Mhm.
will find out that staying with the uncle might actually be actually turn out to be a better deal than
And
staying with her brother.
it
But
is
we don't know all the details, and so we
it is a situation. It is complicated. What is
very
wonderful
complicated.
about it is that somebody wants her. Somebody wants to take care of her, and they know that they will be able to put her and have her in a safe place. And what's so
That's the most important.
heartbreaking is when there are older kids involved. I come from a long line of social workers, and
Yes.
with children, with adults, with drug addicts, like going and getting a pregnant woman out of the crack house, and she's 7, 8 months pregnant, sitting up there with a needle in her arm, and having to get. I mean, I've
Okay, I
seen
have a
this
question for you.
personally.
I have a
I've seen this with my own two
okay,
eyes.
I have a question for you though. Okay, knowing that situation where you see someone who's addicted to drugs, unfortunately, and she happens to be pregnant. Okay, and saying that the system, because a lot of times in most states, if you are a person that is addicted to drugs, that they do not allow you to they take the child usually at birth because they got to first get them off the drugs that's in their system because
Mhm.
the mother was doing drugs. Two, a lot of times they try to place them with a family member and hoping that eventually that the mother would get clean and sober to the point where she would come in and be able to take care of her own child. But then you also have to look at the other aspects that a lot of people don't look at. If this child is mentally, you know,
Has
uh,
mental health issues.
issues because of her mother doing drugs. Okay,
Mhm.
what kind of burden are you about to put on somebody else? And say, okay, well, simply because they're family members, you should be willing to take on this burden, even though it's going to be a hard burden to take on because the child is addicted, to a substance due to no fault of their own,
None.
but they are addicted, and because they may not be able to uh, uh,
Advanced mentally as a lot of people because they're always trying through drugs and they don't know what the body is going through.
and then also a lot of them, they say, do never have that personal connection. They lose that personal connection gene
Yeah,
that we would want. So they may not be able to connect with you, even though they are family members,
right.
because of the prior drug use. See, so there are more than one situation, and that if you don't know more of the details, then it's hard to, I think, for anybody to want to pass judgment on somebody because you don't know.
And I remember when our mother was working at her very last job that she had,
Yes.
and she and her team were fierce. She didn't play. She would let them know. I mean, and she would. I don't know why they always thought I was the nurturing one. Well, and look, here I am, mother
Well, I
love.
mean, what did you are? I mean,
And she would say,
so they knew that. I mean,
no, I need
they
you
didn't know that everybody else went. They didn't. She
she
didn't
would
choose
say,
your
"Baby,
other brothers and
I
sisters.
need you to come. I need you to come with me." And I'm like, "Okay, Ma, where are we going?" That's all right. And so we would go, and with my winning personality, she would allow me to, kind of uh, work to disarm them from the anger. I mean,
Yes.
I remember it was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was in the wintertime. And we got up, and I'm sleeping in the back seat because we went on the other side of town, someplace wherever it was. And when she goes in, because I'm not, I don't go into the houses with them, with her.
Right,
The
because
training,
you want a social worker, so you weren't supposed to.
I'm
That
not
would
a
have been
social worker.
illegal.
I'm like the babysitter in the car, And back then, babies weren't, they didn't mandate having car seats. So when they came out, it was 2 older kids and 3 younger kids. And I'm gonna say like the 2 older kids were like 11 and 12. And the 3 younger kids were like back-to-back babies. So they were like 1, 2, and 3 years old, like that. And so we go in and they're coming out, and it's in the dead of winter. And they're coming out. These kids don't have shoes. The baby got feces all caked on the back of him. When she picked him up, she said when she picked him up out of the crib, it just sounded like all kind of pus was on him. So we get him in the car. We didn't have wet wipes back then. We were using diapers. And, I got the snow, and I got the diaper wet, and I warmed it up, and I warmed it up. And when I went to touch the baby, this baby jumped like, what you gonna do? Like, they didn't know what to do, if I was gonna hit him or hurt him or what. And I was like, Mama, what's wrong with the baby? She said, just hold on, rub his feet. Rub his little feet like this, just rub his feet. That really helped them calm down. And they
Okay.
got him, she got him and one of the things she was adamant about was family reunification. And she never wanted to split up families.
Right.
You brought
Now,
up, maybe
no,
people don't want them because they might be drug addicted. They couldn't stand the baby mama. They didn't know where the baby daddy was. And these children are put in these kind of awful situations. And it was just, I don't understand how people could mistreat a child.
okay, but you have to stop. I mean, stop and that's what I said
And
about
I've
looking at
been
the big
mistreated.
picture.
I know I don't understand how people could do that to a child.
But look at the bigger picture.
I'm
The
looking
people
at
that a lot of people are not willing to look at. There's more than just what's on the surface.
yes,
There's more to this particular story than what's on the surface.
of course.
And the fact that if we're not willing to say, wait a minute, let me stop and really look more at the situation and not just say, I know what I would do. Because you don't
You
always
don't
know what
know.
you don't know because all of us are not put in that situation on a
Right.
regular basis. I mean, the way we have families now, that we're over half the families now are living in a one family home
And one parent home,
one parent home.
a single family home.
The fact to say, okay, well, if you don't even know the other side, how can you suggest that somebody come and stay with you and they never knew your daddy at all, and then say, well, now come stay with the daddy's mother or come stay with the daddy's brother or sister when you've not even known them prior to this. See, that's what's about knowing all the circumstances. Then to say, well, if they didn't take the child in, then there's something wrong with them. Well, maybe it's not something wrong with them. Maybe if you looked at the total situation, you would say, wait a minute, they were put in an awkward position to start with,
Right.
because if they knew that their sibling was on drugs, and which unfortunately has a lot to do with so many of these cases, is that the person is not mentally and physically able to actually take care of their child.
And
And
then
so
you look at the numbers. The millions of kids are in foster care in the system and what have you. There are more grandmothers raising their children, raising their grandchildren. And I remember when we first were talking about adopting kids, or fostering and or adoption. I found out that after you get to be a certain age, you can't adopt. I think it's something like it's got to be a 25-year gap between you getting how young the baby or the child is. That's what when you get older.
I mean, but it all
age
it
out, and
varies.
that's what it is. Put you out there in the world and let
Okay,
you go.
but it varies. But what it tells me, is that more people should talk to their kids when they're still kids about what kind of situations that may occur in the future. About them. Even if you come from a broken home, you can still talk to your child about them not having a broken home when they become an adult. See, a
Okay,
lot of
I
times,
think they're calling it dysfunctional homes and
okay.
toxic environments now.
Well, the point that
You've
I'm
been
making is that
elevated.
the
It's
point that
still
I'm
bad.
making, the point that I'm making is that when you are in that situation,
Mhm.
you know, how many people honestly talk to their child saying, okay, even though me and your daddy is not together, that does not mean that you have to do the same thing when you become an adult and you decide that you want to start having kids and having a family.
Mhm.
Do you take your time to get to know your mate before you hook up with your mate, so you know if that person really wants a child, doesn't want a child? Because a lot of times we don't just simply ask the right questions.
And that is what is so critical in any relationship, building a solid foundation. And when you're talking about sharing your life and everything with this one person, it's you and them against the world. You need to really sit down and talk about this and get to
I
know
mean, but
them.
all the time, but it's like
I
this
know they
circumstance,
just jump into.
this circumstance just came out of nowhere, because neither him or his wife anticipated his parents dying and leaving their sister. Okay, now what happens to her because they're no longer here?
Right.
Those are not situations that you normally sit down and talk to your mate about. I don't. We never sit down and talked about it and said, well, okay, now what if one of our brothers or sisters, a child, something happened to them? Will we be willing to take their child in? We didn't
Right.
talk about that. I mean, I know me and I know you, and I know that we would have stepped up and said, yes, we would take them in. That does not mean that everybody else it feels that way or will want to do that. And to
Right.
say because they don't do that, then there's something wrong with them as a person. No, it's nothing wrong with them as a person. And no, don't put somebody on somebody and say, well, I'm just giving them to you because you're blood. Now, if you treat them right, we hope you'll treat them right. But then again, you might be resentful that you had to take on this responsibility and you
And
don't treat
and
that person right. So
and,
don't just assume that it will be automatically,
and it's gonna work.
peaches and creams when it happens.
Because when you think about it, oftentimes, especially when it's there's been like some kind of gap, you know, uh, uh, the daughter, got out there in the world, got hooked up with people with drugs, and living a fast life. She gets pregnant, and she go tell her parents that she's pregnant, and they're like, "Okay, we got you." We got you.
Yeah.
You got to get off them drugs, and there's no reason for you to be on the street. And now you got a baby. We're not going to allow you to mistreat our grandbaby. We're going to take good care of you. And then, she knows this is going to happen. Then she off. She was when it was having a conversation. She was living in Buffalo New York. Next time they heard from her 7 years later, and she talk about, oh, I'm clean and sober. I want my baby now.
I mean,
They
but
were
that
like,
happened too,
have
though.
you lost your mind?
No.
The
Okay,
child
wait a
had
minute.
no connection to her.
Okay,
They
wait a
said
minute.
she didn't, maybe if she called twice.
Okay, but hold
Twice.
on. Okay, but if that being the case,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that would, to me, that would be a case where you would gradually bring the mother back into the picture, you know, because the time has passed. They just simply say, okay, I show up today and say, well, I'm the daddy. Okay, so I haven't been around for the first 8 years of your life, but I'm the daddy. So therefore, I want to take you. I want you to come stay with me. You don't know me at all. You don't know me. You the next door neighbor. You know the next door neighbor better than you know me.
See,
And
and
the fact that I just simply say, well, I want to just come in and be a part of your life all of a sudden. I mean, that's a shock to that person as well.
it is. It
And,
is.
is the person truly off of drugs now?
Well, see,
And,
now that was one of the issues that they had to the best of my recollection. And they were like, okay, now this child is 7 years old, almost 8 years old.
yes,
We haven't spoken to you and for the sake of the conversation in a good 5.5 years. So this kid does not know who you are. And then
correct.
you want to come in like a stormtrooper. Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready. I came to get my son. I'm ready. I came to get my son. It was like, so where do you live? Well, I live in Los Angeles, California, and you're gonna take this child from Buffalo, New York, to Los Angeles, California, where we don't know anybody out there except you. And they were like,
Okay.
no.
Well,
And
once again, see, that's why it is the details that goes into any these
what they say,
circumstances.
the devil is in the detail.
Because I don't know you, you don't know me, and then they just say, "Come get me," and we leave together. When now I'm taking you from some place that you was comfortable at.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, you were comfortable at the place you were, and then they just take you at the next day and say, "Well, come on, now you coming and you're gonna stay. You're gonna stay with me now. You don't even really know me because you haven't seen me all your life." But all of a sudden, just because I can tell you I'm your blood, mother, or
You're
your
supposed to
blood
believe
father,
me. Mm-hmm.
not just only believe you, but just accept and with open arms and say, okay, well now we're gonna start a brand new adventure and everything will be perfect. Well, you as the child has a lot of questions too that you will be wanting to ask. Well, mama, where were you? Or daddy, where were you the past 5 years? If you really cared about me as much as you say you do now, how come you didn't care about me a year ago, 2 years
See,
ago,
and
five years ago?
the hard part about that is children at that age want to be with their parents, no matter
All,
what the
all
circumstances.
people
Can
do.
I do whatever I could do to get my mother and father back together, to get my family back together?
If if
And a
if
lot of
you
kids
know,
will act out, to
yes,
get
but that's
that.
only if you know. Wait a minute, that's only if you know. Wait a minute, if you know who your father is, if then you could fight for that battle. But if you don't know, you can't fight a battle that you don't even know. You can't say, okay, well, I don't know why my mother and father are not together, but now that I'm here, I want them two to be together. Well, maybe
Excuse me.
wait a minute,
Children
because
should
what you
not be
want
children should not make listen, children should not ever be put in a position to deal with and answer to grown people's problems. That is horrible, terrible.
but it's life.
You don't tell your 8-year-old
It's
about your
life.
sex life. You don't be talking to your 13-year-old daughter and say, girl, let's get some jeans alike. Look, I'm getting my
But
belly
what?
button.
Okay, but
I mean,
you
that's
trying
not
to
what you
bond.
do.
You're
That's
trying
not
to
what you
bond.
do.
Okay, wait a minute. You're trying to bond with that person that you're not bonded with already, because of whatever
Right,
circumstance.
right.
Because I mean, because it's too many details in every circumstance on why you're not with that person. For to come in and say, well, I'm just telling you now that this is what you should do, or this is how you should be. When I'm not aware of the circumstances to start with. Because if I haven't been in your life for 5, 6 years, to just show up out of nowhere does not mean that I automatically gonna say, because you're my mother, you're my father, I trust you. Period. It doesn't
I
matter.
don't
Okay,
even
you
know
just showed
you.
up. You just showed up, so let's go. I
And
know that is a lot for any human being to take, and you wonder why so many. That's why I said, teaching, you know, things that are not being taught at home will be a good thing in school. I mean, we school cannot solve all the problems, but we can help solve a lot of the problems and the issues that are in society by
it's a
addressing them
team
in school.
effort.
When the child feels safety and a comfort of being in school, and saying, okay, well, can they help talk me through some of this? Because everybody doesn't have the same situation. I
Right.
grew up with my mother and father my whole life. So my thoughts on how I look at a couple is different than somebody who would have grew up and then have a mother and father in their home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't say to them, well, okay, you should automatically know what it's like to have a mother and father. When yes, you had a mother and father, but they were not together. So your circumstances is totally different than my
Right.
circumstances. And if you become a rebellious person because your parents were not in your life, or because your mother always talked about your father in a negative light, did it make you feel a negative way about men or about relationships with men because of what your mother was saying? I
This
mean,
this
that
chick,
happens.
this chick, we went to high school together.
Yes.
And she was just all bubbly, and just one of those girls that you just knew she was going to do something with her life, because she was a good looking girl. She got great grades. All the fellas were falling all over. When summer came, this was I didn't turn 16 until that December. So this is in the summer of when I was getting ready to turn 16. So I'm 15,
And a half.
and just having the time of my life. I'm just
Yes.
instigating and just wreaking havoc and running amok, and just was
Okay.
wild and undisciplined. And
Okay.
those were the days, my friend. We thought they never.
Okay, but
So anyway, here she is, and all of us are pretty much looking up to her, and because she never made anybody, she wasn't a mean girl, and we were like, she's really, really cool, and she thought we was really, really cool.
okay.
Okay, so I had, and when you talk about you don't know the circumstances, I had left a book in my social studies book in my social studies class, and I went back into the building and get to the classroom, and this is like school had let out like 10 minutes before that. So I'm going up the stairs, and I go into the room, and I see the typing teacher. He was raping her. She was a child. We were 15, and he was raping her, and she was looking at me with tears coming down her eyes, and I'm standing like this. And she turned her head to me, and I saw her crying, and she said, and I was like, I was shocked. I backed out. Because when he looked my way, and he looked at me like, you better not open your mouth, because it could be you next. I got out of there as fast as I could. I went down to the girls' bathroom in the basement, had to put water on my face, the whole 9 yards. And so she came down to the basement, because apparently he told her, go down there and clean yourself up. And that changed my trajectory right there. And I was hurt for her. And she said, please don't tell anybody. Please don't tell anybody. I'm going to get an A in his class. So you going to let him rape you in the class? She said, it wasn't no rape. What's rape? And they never talk about rape back then when we were growing up. They called it having your way with him, having his way with you.
Okay, but
He was raping her.
well, once again,
She said, please don't tell. Please don't tell. I said, if you better tell it, because if you don't, I am, because what he did to you is wrong, and he don't get to threaten me and think that's gonna be all right. Well, I paid for that with an ass whooping. I mean, he beat me with a stick like I was, some field hand, stole something from him off his farm. I mean, it was wicked, and I never did say anything about it. The whole big incident was about him beating up a student and beating up a girl student. And I mean, he almost broke my wrist. I was in a sling for a while. He blacked my eye. It was awful. And he kicked me in the butt when the boys jumped over the chairs and said, get up, run, run, run. And it looked like all the fellas in the gym, in the place were on him. And I don't know how he got away from them. And he got away from them. And I'm going up these little 2 steps, and he kicked me square in my butt, to the point when I hit the step, my chin busted. Blood was everywhere. And the assistant principal would not call my mother. And it was hell to tell the captain.
Okay, but why not though?
Okay, but why not? Because that came from an outside force. That was not inside of my home. I'm supposed to feel safe at school.
Okay, but why didn't the assistant principal, want to call?
Because she said I was always into trouble, but I'm showing her my shirt is bloody. My shirt ain't never.
Okay, but always being in trouble does not change the fact that it's still an incident happened, right, and not to want to know the incident, right, or not to want to find out. I mean, but we find that all too often how adults cover up for other adults.
Yes, they did,
and tell kids just as a child just to get over it. or don't think about it, and you'll be okay.
Or they'll say this, well, you gonna believe that child? That child lie all the time. I'm an adult. Why you don't believe me? And I was so grateful. And so, even with all my crazy growing up, my mother was always there for me, by hook or by crook. And I bought a lot of lessons, and some of them were quite expensive. And one of the things she said, respect adults. And this guy is beating on me.
I
Like,
mean, you grew up in a different era, though.
right. This is
I
and
mean,
this is in the 60s, and they
okay,
were like,
but when your parents used to taught us as kids growing up that you respected adults,
yeah,
you respected your elders. Okay, well, if you're taught that, and then something happens with an adult, and okay, if you've been taught from the beginning that you're supposed to respect your elders, then you don't know what to do when something like that happens because you are saying, okay, wait a minute, I'm told in one breath to respect adults, but then on the second hand, I didn't
this
expect
adult
this
is not
adult,
respecting me.
as a child, and all the time, you never know why somebody chooses one person over another. When I say choose one person over another, why so many people, single women, have their kids get molested by a friend or associate of of that family because one,
That's
they're
Uncle
financially
Butler.
helping.
Uncle Butler give you $5. Just go on in the
Okay,
room with him. Some mothers encourage that.
okay, because once again, we're not
Use
looking
your
at their
body.
we're not looking at the financial circumstances, and they don't tell you to use your body. What they're telling you is that women, this is an unfortunate situation, but because of this person is helping us financially, and we need to help financially, we're allowing him to do things that he shouldn't be able, that he knows better.
That he
We know
knows are
better.
wrong, or
That
she
we
knows
both
that
know. We
she
all know
knows
that is
that's
wrong.
wrong.
But we're looking at the financial situation that overrides what we should do morally. What we should do morally is overridden by the financial concerns of the family, and that's why a lot of people do it. It's simply based on their
That
finances. It
family
has nothing to
dynamic is
do.
is the family dynamic is crucial, and none of us are one of the things. Well, none of us are perfect, and one of the things my mother would say when we were growing up, she was like, you're never going to be perfect. Just let this going to always be somebody smarter than you, prettier than you, dressed better than you. It's going to be, and if you're that person, please know that people behind you are going to want to do that same thing. So either way you go, you're going to be a leader, and they're going to follow behind what you do. So make sure you're
Yes.
putting out good information. Make sure that you know what you're talking about, and that's why we became. I've always been a very avid reader. Always,
I
I
mean,
have this
but how many people,
to get the knowledge.
you know,
Listen, my mother had a subscription to Playboy magazine, and we were like, and my brothers and them was taking me, go in their room and close the door. And I was like, Mama, why you got Playboy magazine? She goes, because these are some of the best written articles. They're, written by people, everyday people. They're written by people who have achieved, greatness in the world. And
well, most of them was
they
by
had
people who
excellent.
achieved.
They had and I was like, I wasn't excited about looking at a bunch of naked women. Shoot, I look better than them naked. What am I gonna pay
Okay, but
somebody
okay,
for?
you being another woman, different.
Yeah.
Your brothers, it
Oh,
was quite pleasurable for them.
oh, they was just
Okay,
insane.
but the difference is, if you get a chance to talk to someone, I mean, communication
It's
plays a
key.
key role in all of this. I mean, how many people honestly want to sit down and talk to their kids about growing up, the trappings of sex, and how someone could come at you from more than one direction. We just assume that you won't be involved, you won't think about sex until you're an adult.
And then
But
and then your panties be on
okay,
fire,
but
fire, and you got to get them calm. When we were going, it was 4 girls, and then some of the other girls in the neighborhood, because our mother was always straight up, and she would talk to us. She never talked at us or down to us. She said, "Well, if she didn't know," she said, "Well, let's go find out together, and let us get it." We were the only family in all of the estates that we lived around that had 2 sets of encyclopedias. So our kids
I have
at
a
the
question.
school was the homework place, and so she sat down and told us about what's going to happen when we start menstruating, how our
Yes.
bodies were going to change. What
Okay.
yep, it's going to be 20 every 21 or every 28 days. She broke it down for us, and she said, "I want you to understand." And she had the pictures and stuff, and the anatomy, and this is what a boy looks like, this is what a man looks like, and they all have a penis, and this is what girls, and then your breasts are going to grow, and your butt is going to widen, and fellas are going to start looking at you in
Okay, I
a
have a
different
question.
way. You have to be comfortable in your skin so that you don't look like it's going to be easy to prey on you. And I always made sure, whatever my mother said, I don't never have to worry about you getting pregnant out here, because soon as they start talking about your panties being on fire, you better come meet my mama. Come meet my. She would.
Okay, but the question that I would have for you.
She had him terrified.
Okay, the question that I have for you is that how many other parents in your neighborhood talk to their kids about sex? And okay, most parents do not want to talk to their child about. Wait.
One mother who they had a lot of kids, and their daughters would come over, and we would get the talks and stuff and what have you, and we talk it back and forth, and and she's letting us know this is a natural process. There was a lady in the
Okay, but
neighborhood.
once again,
Wait a minute, there was a lady in the neighborhood. She had 3 or 4 daughters, and she did tell her daughters, when they start bleeding from between their legs, they was gonna be evil. And she said, and when you get like that, you got to really wrap yourself up. That's when we found out what a chastity belt was.
okay,
And what it
but
was
I have a
for.
question for you.
It was terrible.
Okay, but now,
But then I would tell them in the bathroom.
okay, but the question that I would have for you is that okay, what happened to her mother? And her goings on in her life. Has she been molested by somebody? Okay, wait a minute. When I say has she been, because that maybe that's
If
why
I
she's
knew
not
then,
talking.
I'm gonna say this. If I knew then what I know now, I would say not only was she sexually assaulted, but she was sexually assaulted over a period of time, because
Okay,
her heart was so hardened. And then come to find out, one of her daughters was on my bus, and she started her period on the bus. So I get all the pull over, I get all the kids off the bus, and I call my dispatch and say what's going on, because this child, and she was bleeding heavy. All her clothes was bloody at the bottom, and and it was just awful. And she came up and she was, winding down and said, I mean, oh, say you got me. And I was like, what the heck? What are you saying? So I'll call one of my friends who lived in the neighborhood. So she brings us over a change of clothes, and so we can get her cleaned up. We go to we go get her a box of Kotex, and because you younger ladies couldn't wear tampons. That might be too much information. But so we get her cleaned up. So her mother had called. They had called her mother at the school to ask her to come and pick her up from the bus stop because there was an incident. And so when the mother came in, the whole time I'm standing there with her, keeping her calm, explaining to her that's what her body naturally does. My body does the same thing every month. When my body ain't doing that, okay, that could be trouble right there, And so and I got her calm, and she felt better. And I opened up the bus. Her mother was there banging on the door. I opened up the door, and I was like, and the little girl was in the front of the bus, and she was right behind me. And so we talking, and then we open the door. She sees it's her mother. The girl jumped up, got to the first step, and started screaming and hollering at her mother. You're a liar. You're a liar. You've been lying to me all my life. You're a liar. And I'm like, oh, what the? She tried
Okay,
to get me
so
fired.
okay,
She tried to
so
get me
once
fired because I told her to tell the truth.
okay, but once again, now was it what the mother was saying? It wasn't your place to take.
That's what she said.
Okay,
It wasn't none of my business.
okay, but now you made it your business because of the situation that came up at that moment.
This
All right.
child was in distress.
Okay, well, I'm saying you made that decision at that particular moment.
I
of time.
did. I
But
did
how
make
many?
that decision.
I'm saying how many?
And I was
mothers-
prepared. They could have fired me for it, and I would have been all right with it. Because if I had to do it again, if I had to do it 10 times, I would do the same thing.
Okay, but that doesn't make because you did that does not mean that every adult will be in that position or have that knowledge to be able to talk to it.
Oh,
okay.
Oh,
Wait.
Okay, wait. Okay, you finish what you're gonna say, because I got to tell you the end of that story. Go ahead.
Okay, the point that I'm making is that when we first started talking, I was saying that most parents do not talk to their kids about sex, about their bodies maturing and how they would change. Most of them don't. They say, let you learn that on your own. Let you learn that from school. Let you learn that from a friend. They don't want to talk to you about it. I mean, now we know that this is something that so many parents do not want to talk to their child about sex, about them, if you're a young lady, about you starting to have periods. For a young man, that okay, your hormones will start to change as you become, a teenager, and the fact that you'll want to have sex, but do you be responsible when you and when you want to do this, or are you irresponsible? I mean, that's why they equip a lot of folks and give young men condoms. Okay, we know you will have the urge, but now, do we want you to be responsible, even though you're having this urge, that
When
you
you
just
make
don't go
that
out,
step over,
and
and that
that
got to be
all
your
that matters.
decision.
All that does truly matter, because a lot of us do not think about that, and there's something that it's a part of life that most families do not want to have that talk with their kids.
And
Some of them do, and the ones
and
that
they
do,
go too far. They tell too much.
and sometimes they don't tell
I
enough.
know people who tell their daughters and sons all about their sex life. I'm like,
Okay,
why would you
well,
tell that to your child?
okay,
And you don't
because
think they're going, are not going to want to experiment, not going to want
okay,
to know
well,
what
also,
you found out about it. I remember when I first found out about it, I was terrified. I was like, I don't think I want to be a
okay, so
woman.
why
I
was you
don't want to do
terrified
this
then?
every
Wait a minute.
month.
If your mother talked about this all the time, why were you terrified then?
Because
There's a
I didn't
difference.
want to be, I did not want to have them, I didn't want to be in that position. I didn't want to have a period. I didn't want my breast to grow. I didn't want none of that to happen because it just sounded icky. It just,
As
it was,
to a
then
kid,
when I
to
found out,
most kids, to women, to most kids, it is icky, because that's not something that you were accustomed to doing as you were growing up as a little kid. This is as
right.
you start to mature and you start feeling different. When your voice change, when you go from the high pitched voice to the lower pitch, when these changes start happening, if no one has talked to you about it, then you're not, most of the time you're not prepared for it, because nobody stopped to take the time to tell you about it beforehand.
Well, like I said, she told us, and I was like,
And I said you were one of the few.
so many of my girlfriends when we were young teenagers, I was the last one in my group that I grew up with, and we were like, that these wasn't my girls, these were my ride or die girls.
Yes.
I was the last one to have a baby. I was the last one to have a baby. I didn't have my son till I was 24 years old. By the time they got 24, their kids was like 10, 12 years old.
Okay, but the difference,
grandmother's at 35. I'm like,
okay, but once again, that's almost a child raising a child.
it is.
Because if you don't talk to people and explain to them about a lot of these stuff that's going to have to happen naturally, then you're not aware of it. You don't always know how to handle it, because you simply do not.
Oh, wait a I beg to differ.
Because you don't know.
I beg to differ because now they're so sophisticated, they can Google it and see the positions. Wait a minute, speaking of that, wait a minute, I want to change the subject. It goes in tandem with children, and when they're putting these unnecessary.
We have 2 minutes. 2 minutes left.
Wait a minute. No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
Okay, well, this is going to be quick then. I want to get your opinion on the Surgeon General saying that we should have warnings on these social media sites for these kids because it's become so dangerous. Like the sign you put on cigarettes and say this, this is detrimental to your health. What do you think about them putting a warning sign on that, like they did tobacco and the movies and now the internet and these social media platforms?
Yes, they should. But that's a subject for another day when we have more time to talk about that, because that's not something that should just be quickly said. Okay, what do you think about? Yes, I think that is something that should be mentioned, because it affects so many millions of people, because almost everybody now has a cell phone. So that is the topic that we need to talk about. But and
there's no privacy anywhere.
Okay, but it's on in 2 minutes. That's not enough time to give it adequately.
Well, it's enough to wet my whistle about it and get you.
I'm not disagreeing. I mean, that could be something we can talk about tomorrow.
That ought to be had. I was thinking about that when I remember when I first came out here. I remember when I first came out here. That we'll hold that meeting
right, that's all I'm saying.
for another day.
You can't try to squeeze it in a second.
And I'm gonna tell you what happened with the crazy mama. And remember this, babies. No
okay,
matter
wait a minute. Before happy birthday, Robert Ferguson.
Oh, happy birthday, Robert Ferguson. I'm glad you remember.
That's
I'm
what I
glad
said.
you remember.
The time is almost up. Okay, now I'll turn it back over to you, but I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned Robert Ferguson, that we remember the day is his birthday, and
Happy birthday, baby. And
and
happy
many
birthday
more.
to all the June babies. Have a
June 18th
wonderful day.
babies, especially because today
And
is
what
June
kind of
18th.
babies?
To the June 18th babies, people were born on the
Oh,
18th.
today is June 18th. Tomorrow's Juneteenth. Let us celebrate and understand and love our cultures, where we come from. So thank you very much. We always have a lively conversation. Huh, Mr. Kid?